We are live. Hello, everyone. Those of you who are coming in, those of you who have been waiting, we are live. Thank you for tuning in to the Speak Well podcast. I see some viewers here. Thank you so much for being here. We just had a couple of technical difficulties. I'm not in my regular space, so I'm trying to figure it out, trying to make it work. So just bear with us as we try this. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to introduce my guest for tonight, and then I may go off camera so I can figure this out because I want to make sure I try to be a perfectionist, right? So I want to make sure I'm doing this right. Um, Couple of things are just not what I want them to be, but that's okay. We're gonna make it work. So on tonight, I have my sister here, Talisha. She's a professional. She is a certified professional. When I created this space, I wanted to invite men and women to come and be able to speak and share. But I didn't just want to bring anybody. I wanted to bring someone in that was astute in the topic in which you were speaking of. And this is what she do. She talks about relationships. She talks about being your best self, anxiety, depression, what causes those things, how to get up from being in a depressed state, how to get out of a relationship, how to get into one, how to prepare to be the best woman or the best man, how to make those next moves, how to pivot, after a breakup. That those are some of the things that we're going to talk about on tonight. She already have her notes. Tonight, this is her show. I'm just sitting there. We're going to dialogue as we see fit. She's going to share um, some of her personal moments with you all. She's going to share what she wants you to know. She's going to talk about how she got out of it. May even talk about what made her go into therapy. When I met her, we were both working for Department of Corrections, and every time I saw her, she was pleasant. She was always at work. She was a staple in Department of Corrections, DC jail to be exact. She spent a lot of time with the inmates, helping them be their best selves. And I know she would attest to this when I say it, but many of those inmates are now returning citizens, and they are doing very, very good. And I would say that it is because of those seeds that she have planted within them. And I believe that they would also thank her for everything that she has done for them. She she left a deposit. She sowed a seed, and now she's able to see those seeds grow. And so, without further ado, girlfriend, you got it. You got
Yes, thank you so much, you kid. Like I'm telling you, I so appreciate being here tonight. When I knew you were doing a podcast, I was like, yes, I want to be a part of this and support you because I always would see you same, so beautiful, so pleasant, like, but knew without a doubt we had the same mission to be that vessel, to be that person. So I'm excited to be here tonight and just thank you so much for the opportunity. Um, so you and I had a conversation about, what we're going to talk about tonight and things like that. And I shared with her that I'm currently in private practice, and a lot of my work surrounds talking to people about relationships. I got a lot of clients that are on dating apps. I got people that's married. I got people that's single. I got people that's in their first relationships. And it's just a lot of conversation about it. Of course, social media puts women and men at odds every single day. So if we're not saturated with it enough in the media, I'm getting it personally in private practice. So I felt like just due to the overwhelming feedback that I get regularly, it's time to share some things. The difference tonight in therapy versus being here on a podcast, I get to be me. When I'm being your therapist, I'm at work and I'm going to function within your goals. It's not my what I think you should do. It's not about that. It's about your goals. Here I'm a little more open to share my personal, professional experience. And this experience goes dates back for years. It's not just all current experience, but more of my ideals and my thoughts specifically. Which, like I say, in the therapy process, it's more of us working together and you kind of me following along your lead with your goals. So I think the perfect place to start, um, is with the individual. Okay. When we start to talk about self-discovery. And I enjoyed that topic because I realized in talking to so many people, especially ones that have been in relationships, young people, we don't always know what we want, what we like, what we don't like. Some of us have been heavily influenced by our family, by the people that we date. And so some of the things that we think we like or think is appropriate, they're really just learned. It's really just stuff that we've learned. It's really just stuff that we've picked up. It doesn't necessarily have to be what we authentically enjoy. Like I'll ask people, like, what's your hobby? What's something that you do when you're not working or when you have your free time? And some people they don't know. Some people are very, very, very not interested in being alone. Like that's a hard place to be. And so I think it's important that when you think about self-discovery, you think about striving for small things for yourself. You know, a lot of people on a health journey. I always tell people start small. If you're just trying to eat 3 salads a week, if you're just trying to work out 2 days a week, give yourself these little things to aspire to in your day-to-day process so that you're constantly working on something. And it's something of your personal interest. It's something that you personally feel some value in. And it's going to give you some value back. It's going to give you discipline. It's going to give you sometimes feeling better. You know, it's going to give you the ability to be by yourself because you might like to do something like low key. I really enjoy hot yoga. I don't got 5 people that's going to run the hot yoga with me. But if that's my thing and I enjoy it, I should still do that because it does something for me. So I really, in the self-discovery piece, I really think it's important that people begin to really think about their interests, their hobbies, things that are very personal to them. When thinking about self-discovery, I also was thinking about boundaries, right? And I say boundaries because a lot of times
That's
when
a big one.
seriously, the saying goes, boundaries allow me to keep you in my life, right? When some people think that a boundary is like, okay, this is a fence to keep you out. It's not necessarily to keep you out. It doesn't always have to be that. If I want you in my life, I still have to have a line, right? And so a boundary gives you the ability to state what your line is. But if you don't know yourself, sometimes you don't got a line. And that's why we find ourselves going through so many different things because we don't have a line. And that's important, especially when you think of moving from the individual self and entering a relationship with somebody else. A lot of people, they break up, they get into new relationships very quickly without the moment to take a pause. Because what I always say, I'll let a person run me 99 things the other person did wrong. I hear you. They did this, they did that, they did this, and that caused the demise of the relationship. But I'm
Mm-hmm.
gonna give you a little bit of accountability. Where do you see yourself? Did you stay too long? Did you enter a relationship too early? Did you not say no to things that you should have said no to? Where do you fit? Because in order not to keep repeating the same things, you got to look at you. And you can't look at you if you drown yourself in your work, if you go on to the next relationship in the next week. You can't look at you doing that.
Mm-hmm.
You are just moving and moving and moving and not taking the time to self-reflect. So I think that that's a really, really important piece that I always recommend.
I have a question.
Mhm,
You mentioned boundaries.
mhm.
How can we set boundaries without being offensive, or how can we set boundaries without the other person thinking that the boundary is set to keep them out?
So I think everything is the delivery, right? Like my job. When somebody tells somebody, you crazy, you need to go to see the therapist. That doesn't make anybody want to come talk to me. You've just called them crazy. You just told them they need to go see somebody. When you say, which is usually my recommendation, I really care about you. I want to see something different for you. And I realize I can't help you myself.
Mm.
That has a different feel. So when you're talking about boundaries and I'm saying delivery, sometimes it goes with a conversation. therapeutic tool is iMessages, right? So now I message you say, I feel like this when you do this, right? And so if I feel disrespected when you curse, when you yell at me, then a boundary might be when you begin to curse and yell, I'm gonna stop the conversation until we can use more pleasant words and a better tone. That's my boundary. I'm not gonna curse and yell with you. I'm gonna stop, right? If I have a conversation with you and I explain that to you, just like I just did, you would better understand it than if we having a conversation and I get the shouting and the yelling and you just walk away. And so now it's like, okay, you're not listening to me. I'm not being heard. But if I explain it, then like that's a trigger for me, or that's not something I want to respond to. And when you do that, I'm going to try to remove myself or I'm going to stop the conversation. Now you understand. And if we can together come up with another way, then together we come up with another way.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's how you explain it so that people understand sometimes that boundaries, I always say, don't really have anything to do with love. I could love you deeply and still need a boundary as to how much time, how I want to be treated, what I expect you to do. I still can have that even when I love you. So it's not necessarily about love. It's about trying to be healthy. Because if I'm placing a boundary, something that's happening, I don't want it to continue to happen because it's doing something to me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That makes sense. That makes sense. I wanted to speak to that. I know a lot of times, many of us, speaking of women specifically, or this can go for a male as well. Many of us have been so independent um, for so long that when we get into a relationship, it's kind of hard to take the back seat because, and you may agree with this, you may not. When you have been independent for so long, right? Then you also pair that with abandonment, um, and lack of trust. So all of those three things are working together and probably against you. So I'm very independent, have always had to be independent. It's hard to take a back seat sometimes because I know the times that I took the back seat, the thing didn't get done, whether it was from a parent, a friend, so it's becoming a woman and becoming a man has never been easy. It's hard work. And then when you bring two individuals into one space, it can also be difficult. But I don't want to say difficult to the place that people don't want to get into a relationship, because a relationship is a beautiful thing when two people understand each other. You said that when the argument starts, I'm not going to argue back and forth with you. Some of us have used arguments as our defense mechanism, right? So it's like the arguments start, you're hooping, you're hollering, you're screaming, and I want to give you the same energy because that's also a boundary. Like, wait, I've always had to defend myself as a child or a kid. So the moment I hear somebody screaming, it could trigger my trauma, right? Or my anxiety. So how do you work through? And I would also, because I'm in therapy, I would also say therapy is key because you're able to sit with someone who you can speak to vulnerably and they can give you advice, non-biased advice on what's needed. And I think even if you have the perfect relationship, therapy is needed because I want to be, the best wife, a better mother, a better friend, a better daughter, with still having those boundaries set. Like you set a boundary with your children. If you go to bed at 9 o'clock and your door's closed, don't you come busting up in here. That's the boundary, right? Give me my space. Of course, little baby's gonna do it. If you're in the bathroom, they bust in. But a boundary is that bathroom time is my time. I don't know how many ladies here on the live can agree with that. But that bathroom time, whether you on the toilet or in the shower or in the mirror, doing that is your time. Because life is moving so fast. So that is your time, right? But I just wanted to say, just being intentional about, an argument starting, and you just, because sometimes we feel like, I don't want you to think you won this argument. Do that make sense? And I don't know if it's ego or what, but it's like, no, I'm trying to get my point across. You trying to get your point across, but we both can't get it across if we both screaming. So wait a minute, because it's this mentality of no, I ain't gonna let nobody treat me any kind of way type thing.
Yeah.
So we respond immediately, right?
Yeah.
And then you kind of it's almost like somebody gotta be the bigger person to say, I'm gonna settle this down and we'll talk about it tomorrow.
There you go.
Because if we keep going back and forth, this can get bad. But I just think, I just wanted to have the dialogue with those who are here. That, I mean, if you're in the chat, talk back to us. Are we making sense? Does that make sense? Is that something you struggle with? Feel free to put questions in the chat as well. But I just wanted to add to that, because independence, abandonment, and what was the third one? Independence, abandonment, and lack of trust. All of those things just cause you to be like, because I come from a place where I didn't have a lot of men that defended me. Yep. So whether it's male, female, dog, or cat, you say something to me, I'm gonna say it back, because I've always been the friend. Here we go. I've always been the friend or the family member that people will call to come and deal with a problem for them, because I've never been afraid to speak. So when you have all of that mixed up with your estrogen and then your femininity and all that stuff, it's like,
it goes with testosterone too. the men got it too. What you're talking about is frequently called. So one, I'm gonna say, I'm gonna quote Jay-Z when I say, "No one wins when the family feuds." Okay, that's key when we're talking about a relationship and family. That if we just going at it, there is no winner. It may feel like I'm trying to win and I'm trying to, come out on top in this conversation, but no one wins if we're at odds. It really is no winner. But it's a trauma response. When people say I can do it by myself and these different things, or just I want to do it my way, that's a trauma response from what you said. If you've been let down, if you haven't been protected, all these different things, who I know I can depend on is me 100% of the time. But when we enter a relationship, that's another person. Mm-hmm. So that's similar to when you go to work, one of the best qualities that they look for is, can you be a team player, right? And being a team player, especially if we use the work analogy, I'm not going to always get what I want being a team player. Sometimes I'm going to have to go with what the other person wants just to appear diplomatic, to keep the peace. Sometimes that's what it's going to be. Mm-hmm. And so it's a similar thing in a relationship. If I'm just trying to match your energy, then we're not even listening to each other to understand. We're listening to respond. Sometimes we going too low, and sometimes we don't recover well from that. The other part is, I like what you said, and I like what you recognize about yourself. We got to spend some time with recognizing that some of the things that we've gone through in life are going to stay with us for a very long time, if not our entire lifetime. The effects of certain losses, the effects of certain trauma and circumstances, they stay with you forever. Mm-hmm. But we can't enter every situation like it's the traumatic situation that we've gone through in the past, because it may not call for the same response. So I had to fight all my life, and now I got a partner. I shouldn't be fighting my partner. We should be trying to figure out how to be on the same team. But for both genders, get let down so much, get disappointed so much, go through so much that, like, I'm not going to let nobody do whatever. But that trust and love say that this person not going to do that to you, so it don't apply in this space. Mm-hmm. So the therapy and being able to recognize things that you've gone through, just you as a whole individual, anybody, recognizing things that you've gone through and being able to say, like, this a trigger for me because of my past. And you have to come back and share some of those things with your partner. Not every single thing, but you have to share some of those things with your partner so that they understand that, like, okay, it's not necessarily that you the bad person, but because of my trauma, because of this triggers me in this way, when you do it, it flashes back to that. Mm-hmm. So it's helpful to me if you don't. And that's kind of a good segue into communication. You know what I mean? Like that's why communication is so vital, because we got to learn to communicate these likes and dislikes and these needs and these wants and these different things, because I've watched so many times people come before me and they're upset because they're not on the same page. Nobody communicated the page.
Mm.
You
Nobody
in your
communicated
head.
the page.
Nobody communicated the page. You in your head wanting or feeling like this should happen, but you never explicitly said, this is what I want. This is how I would like to be responded to when I'm like this. And so now we didn't communicate. So now I'm expecting you to be a mind reader. Now I'm mad that you can't read my mind, and you should know sometimes we don't.
Mm-hmm.
We all still human.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we don't see it like our partner just because we like the same food, same music, same places. We like all that stuff the same. It still might be some very intricate things that we don't see the same.
Mm-hmm.
And so definitely that's something that like I always offer people, like, did you tell your partner specifically that this is what you want? Did you tell your partner that you want this because this is what it does for you?
Mm-hmm.
You pack my lunch and my food is ready when I come home from work, I feel valued. I feel like I can carry on, like I really got a teammate.
Mm-hmm.
Versus I work too. What you mean cook? What? So that communication piece, I think, is so vital.
How
And
do you so communication?
mhm,
How do you and some of these questions are from me and some of these questions are from DMs and messages and things like that I got prior, but as it relates to communicating, how do you communicate something or some things um because here's the thing. When people hear you say, "Hey, I need to speak to you," you're already panicking.
yeah,
It can be, we just got some money, let's talk about what to do with it. But you already panic with, I don't know what has happened to all of us as kids, but when somebody says, "Hey, I need to talk to you later,"
it's anxiety. I'm a therapist. I'm gonna call it what it is. Worries, nervousness, fears is anxiety. And so, yes, your internal alarm is going off like, what?
yes, yes. How do you, because communication is so big in everything, in every arena, in your home, in your job, in your workplace, even how you communicate with yourself.
Mhm.
How do you communicate? You don't have a malicious intent. You want to communicate, right? But you want to communicate what your needs are, like you said, getting on the same page. How do you communicate? Because some people just don't know how to be expressive about what they want or what they need. How do you do that without making your partner feel less than a woman, less than a man? And again, that's not your intent. You're just saying, this is what I prefer, this is what I need, this is what I want, without them feeling like, because sometimes I also want to say this. Therapy, they say, is not it's not for you, but it's for who you got to deal with a lot of times, right? But how do you have the conversation but make them comfortable in the conversation to say, I'm not coming down to you, I'm just saying, because you may say, hey, I want this, and they may be like, well, why do you want that? Where did you see that at? And it's just like, wait a minute, right? What do you advise in those situations? That's one. I want you to answer that, because then I have a second part to that.
Okay. So what I'll say is creating a safe space is vital in any relationship, in a intimate relationship, in a family relationship, in a mother child, father child, step parent child. Creating a safe space is overall of the utmost importance, because if the space is safe, I know that you're coming to me in love. So I'm always going to think of positive intentions coming from you. I'm not going to think that you're coming with me to with anything else but a positive intent. You're not coming to me to tear me down. I'm not thinking like that because the space is safe. When the automatic thought is you trying to tear me down, where'd you get this? Why are you thinking this way?
Mm-hmm.
That's a defensive thought. And sometimes that's something that a person got to work out in their individual
Yeah.
treatment of why when someone need to talk to me, I'm already on the defense.
Yes.
Definitely likely comes from your past, definitely likely comes from your past experiences because possibly whenever you were approached, it was about something negative and you had to defend yourself. But again, recognize not spaces. This is my partner. This somebody I love. This somebody that we supposed to have a safe space with. I'm going to believe that you coming with positive intent.
Mm-hmm.
That's my hope. That's my knee jerk reaction. All right, she or he is coming with a positive intent.
Mm-hmm.
The next, the next part of that is I think that this is the reason why I tell people about relationships, how much a friendship is important as a foundation. When you think of your friends, there are things that you are not going to do to your friends. You're not going to do nothing malicious to somebody that you call a friend. You're not going to tear your friend down when you tell them something. Even if you say, girl, I don't know if you should wear that. You might want to change what you got on. That's not me trying to tear you down. That's me. I want you to look your best. Now, you might not receive it that way. So that's why I still rest on delivery is important. We got to learn sometimes how to say things. And that's why they're communication coaches, they're therapists, and they're just people in your life that you already know of that deliver it better that you can learn from. Sometimes we got to pretend like we're somebody else to get the mindset of, I want this to land. But that's why the friendship is so important because if we have a friendship and we have a bond, then there's certain things that are most likely off the table. Disrespect, tearing you down, not coming from a good place, it's off the table. So if this is a safe space and you and your partner have conversations that we want to be each other say, I think that needs to be said out loud. I want to be your safe space. I want you to be able to come to me. I remember I was dating this guy and it was like the first date. He said, you prefer a hard truth or ugly lie? And I was like, dang, nobody asked me that before. Give me the hard truth, right? And I've carried that with me. But in order to hear hard truths, you got to be in a safe space. You got to be open minded and receive that it don't exactly got to be about you. This could just be what this person wants for themselves to go to the next level, and they want you a part of it. So I want businesses, I want these things with my partner. I gotta tell you, I don't like how you spend your money. I don't like the way that you operate. I'm not telling you that because I dislike you, but I see that this dynamic is not going to get to the goal that I want us to share. So we have to have a tough conversation. But if we lead with, some couples have like a safe word, so you know it's not a like I need to talk. It's not I need to talk because we about to be fist fighting and somebody about to walk out the door. But it's just like I need to share something really like intimate with you that I want you to hear and not react to. And
That's good. I think that's a safe statement though. Because some people think the word intimacy only relates to sex, but intimate means it's personal, it's between us, it's private, it's close to me, it's close to my heart. So that's and I hope those who are listening are taking notes. They're about, it says it's fluctuating between 8 to 10 people viewing, but for some reason the numbers always lie. But I hope people are taking notes. But that's a safe statement to say, I have to share something very intimate with you. And I think when you lay it out like that, so I work with a young guy. He's a Muslim. He's a devout Muslim. He's about 26, and he's been a Muslim all his life. And so when we first met him, he would greet us with a handshake, right? He would greet you with he would shake your right hand, but he'll put his left hand over his heart.
Mm-hmm.
He said because automatically that breaks any barrier, any disrespect. He's letting you know it's okay. I am okay. And it kind of he tilt his, and I'm just like, those small gestures mean a whole lot. And if other cultures have adapted to them, I think we should find something that works for us, because many of us are still fighting out of trauma, right? We're successful, we're in business, we have children, we have marriages, we have employees, but we're still fighting through that trauma, through trauma, through grief, through all of that. But I made a mental note to create a safe line to be able to say, this is not, don't be alarmed, right? One of my friends, I call her my sister, she texted me 2 weeks ago, and when she texted me, she said, before she said anything, she said, don't be alarmed. Because she knew what was coming after that could potentially alarm me. She said, don't be alarmed. I'm sending you X, Y, and Z, but don't be alarmed. What she knew is that I was going to take care of it. It was delayed in how I was going to, but she's basically saying, I'm not even worried. I'm just saying to you, here is the steps, but don't be alarmed. Don't worry. I think saying that in the beginning, that's a good place to say it, right? Letting someone know and saying it in a tone that they can receive from.
That and sometimes you don't say nothing. You wait until you're in the presence of the person and the energy is soft, and then you say, hey, I want to run this by you. You know what I mean? Because some people, they not going to adjust. If you say we need to talk, no matter how you say it, they don't know what's coming behind that other side. But the beauty in it, to parallel what you said, is that you define your own relationships. There are books on relationships. So back in the day, there's no book. There are plenty of books, but you define your own relationship. So you and your partner decide, we really need to say something. What we need to do to let each other know who really say something. And you guys can define it and begin to just hold true to it. You know what I mean? But with some people, you're just gonna have to get them in the space and just talk to them in a moment.
The other question I have, as it relates to therapy, you have individual therapy, you have family therapy, you have couples therapy. There are all of these therapies. If there was a graft, what would you say a person should do first? Because some of us need every area of therapy, right? Individual, family, couple. Where would you say start? Because it's like, you can't just jump out and go to marriage counseling and you still jacked up, individually. Then it's like, you can't go to individual counseling because some of what you may be dealing with is from family. So how do you, it's a lot.
It can be a lot. It can be a lot because sometimes we just got a lot of healing to do. But I think individual therapy is a good space. So I see some people individually, and sometimes I see them as a couple, and times I've seen them individually and then seen them as a family. But I say individual first because sometimes you need the tools and the bandwidth to be able to walk into couples counseling, to be able to walk into family therapy. For a lot of us as adults, culturally, African American culture is we don't talk about what go on in our family. Okay, we don't talk about it. We treat each other up, down, side to side. But if we see each other next week and everything fine, we're gonna go with everything being fine. We don't got nothing to talk about. If our family members have not gotten to a place where therapy is acceptable, they will not go on board. They will not, I'm not sitting down talking to nobody. It's not an option. And so people feel like sometimes, well, if a person won't sit down and talk, then I'm never going to heal. I don't think that that's accurate. You have to decide if you want to go on your individual healing journey, because there's going to be a ton of things that happen to us that nobody's going to apologize for. Nobody is going to admit their wrongdoing. And if you're waiting for that, you're going to be hurt for the rest of your life. Because that's just not how it works. And I'm not making nobody parents or family bad people. I would never do that. But it's just the fact that some people are just not those kinds of people. And it's not up to you to change somebody and make them do anything. It's up to you to find your own individual peace in some way, shape, or form. But essentially start with yourself so you can explore. And this is why I say, like, sometimes people that come to therapy and their spouses are like press them out about what they discuss in therapy. And I think it's really unfair because that's your private space.
Mm-hmm.
And I can initially have a feeling that I bring to therapy, but through processing, my feeling changes.
Yes.
So if I tell you a feeling and you run with it without giving me a chance to do the work, that it might change on its own, then we having problems for no reason. You haven't let me undergo my growth process.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't had a chance to really talk through and sort out how I feel because we're really accustomed to just doing. If the emotion is uncomfortable, that's one thing that I wrote in my notes. Women are notoriously called emotional.
Mm-hmm.
We're emotional. You and I know, especially working in that jail, that men can be just as emotional as women. It doesn't, I don't discriminate gender wise between emotions, but what's here is they're expressed differently.
Differently, yes.
It's a difference of expression. So more than likely, you will know exactly how a woman is feeling because of her expression.
Yes.
With a man, you may not know exactly how they feel because their expression in most cases is an action over words.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know this, I'm giving you jewels, whoever's in this
Yeah.
chat.
Yeah, I hope they taking notes. Go back and watch the replay because this is I think this is the perfect time to have the conversation. We're in spring going into summer. We know they always say when summertime come, relationships just don't work and don't nobody want to be in the house. Well, if you have something that you really love and that you like, it will work because you can do things together. But this conversation for personally for me is so rich because it speaks about some things I knew and a lot of things I did not know. See, being a part of families like many of us, there's no need for them to go to therapy because they didn't do nothing wrong. Right? But what we are doing is healing from things that they allowed to happen to us.
I will also add that that's a common understanding, but deeper than that, it's too hurtful and I don't want to go back to it.
Too hurtful and don't want to go back through it. You know, the one thing that I knew I was going to break in my house, what go in this house, stay in the house. No, if something happens in this, if God, this ain't happening. But being touched in your house by your cousin, it ain't no, oh no, the cousin being dealt with, if you know what I mean, and this is going to be a public matter. It's not going to be private. And so we have to change the way we raise, the way we love, the way we train, the way we deal, because if we don't, we end up with little people like us. So we're going through therapy. We're doing podcasts. Many people, establish podcasts just to be able to talk out their feelings and emotions and hear from other people, which is fine. I think they're all good. But this is what we're doing so that we can heal and be better versions of ourselves for the people that we're called to. Speak about those relationships that, because we know two people coming together, they can clash often, but there's something there. There's love there. There's lifelong commitment there. It's just, and you could have already answered. It could very well just be, therapy. I feel like people hear from outsiders better than they can hear their spouse.
Yes.
Do you agree with that?
People oftentimes, because I don't do a lot of couples therapy because I don't like the arguing, right? I don't like it. That's part of my healing is to not be in spaces with a whole bunch of arguing. Me and my ex-husband, we did a lot of arguing. So that's one of my things. But I definitely think that, like, you hear it differently because one, there's rules in therapy. You ain't gonna get to cut a complete food like you do at home. You're not gonna get to do that like that. You're gonna be able to express yourself, but think of it like with a moderator, mediator. And so there are times where you gotta say, stop. I remember in my training for family therapy, the biggest thing they would always say is you interrupt negativity, you interrupt it, and I don't care how you got to do it. If you got to stand up, you interrupt the negativity because you don't let people just go so low. But when they in their private spaces, sometimes they go low. So one thing that I'll offer for you to Google is Rules to Fair Fighting. It's something that I use often in therapy. It outlines things that it outlines what kind of fighter are you, and it outlines like things that you shouldn't do in an argument that also tell you why you shouldn't do it. So like name calling, hitting below the belt, storing up a bunch of complaints and then shooting them off at one time like a gun, like all this stuff, and it kind of tells you what those things are. I've done that so many times. And I used to do it in the groups that I taught. So it's definitely stuck with me, right? Rules of fair fighting. And essentially, it is a guidance of like how to have the dialogue. But when couples come in and they're trying to talk about something, the hope is that you feel the support. The work is getting people in the room because they believe this is their business and they don't need to be talking to somebody else. And if you're going to take this person's side, then I don't want to have a conversation. Like it just becomes something that it wasn't initially supposed to be. So it's coming in with an open mind. And I always tell people, think about your goal. So like watching Oprah and Michelle Obama have their conversation. One of the things Michelle Obama had said was like, there was years that she did not like Barack.
Yes.
And
America went off when she said it, but that was an honest response or reply.
If you think about your grandparents or certain people think about their grandparents, you seen them not say nothing to each other for days, weeks at a time. But my grandma washed them clothes, cooking that breakfast, doing those different things, even if they didn't have a dialogue, all that stuff still took place. So I'm fulfilling my role, but I ain't messing with you like that right now, not on that level. But I think what my takeaway from that and what I tell people is if marriage is for a lifetime, life expectancy is around 80. You don't expect to go through some deep stuff in 50 years. You can get a job and go through stuff in a year. You can get in another relationship and go through a bunch of stuff in 2 years. What you think gonna happen for 30, 40, 50, 60 years? It's going to be some things. I'm not telling people to tolerate anything that's going to kill them and destroy them on the inside. But I am saying that now that I'm more mature, I got married when I was 24, 25 years old. All I knew was that we were trying to create a foundation that was different than anything that we knew. We wanted to be married. We wanted to show the love we had for each other to everybody. We wanted that for our daughter. Like we wanted this. Like we wanted a family. We always knew that like we was gonna give each other stuff that we didn't have. We gonna give each other a family. And essentially, my marriage didn't work, but I realize now that there's going to be some things and it's going to be your personal challenge to work through, again, that team player aspect, to work through these things with your partner. And it takes that, I always say it takes influence. Partners should influence each other. I shouldn't have to beat it down on you. You need to get a physical. You need to go to the doctor. You need to pay the bills on time. I shouldn't have to drill that in, argue that in. If I have influence, once I reference it, you should hear me and try to receive it. Right? And so a lot of times when people come in, they need to talk about why they no longer can have influence over each other. And they at a stuck spot where I don't care what you're talking about. I don't care what you're talking about. I'm not doing what you want and I'm not doing what you want. And we got a house together, we got bills together, ain't nobody going nowhere, so we're here.
Yeah. So a lot of the guys that we've taught, some of them I'm still in touch with. I'm sure many of them you're in touch with. So they are, most of them are in relationships or in marriages or in different things like that. And I find myself having to say to them, this is what you wanted. You got to work through this. So relationships for them could be a first, could be a second, maybe even a third. But being on the outside is different. And so I have to constantly remind men, if you want a woman to be soft, you got to prepare a soft place for her. Because many women have had to fight fathers, uncles, brothers, other men. If you want her to always be soft, if you always want her to be soft and feminine, you got to create a soft and feminine space for her, right? Now, some women are difficult, some of them are not. Those that are not hard to please. They're easy to please, and they want to do all. They want to do the stuff, grandma. They want to do the cooking, the cleaning. They want to do all of that stuff.
Yeah.
But men also have. Here's what I'm gonna say, and I've never said it before. Men have a higher responsibility in that relationship because, again, in some cultures, women don't really have to lift a finger, right? But we understand that because we're realistic. We have realistic expectations over here. Here's the thing: I have to lift a finger because I'm accustomed to lifting the finger, and I'm used to it, and I like my stuff set a certain kind of way. Okay. But men got to provide that for women, right? They got to provide. They also got to reassure women everything is okay or everything is going to be okay. Because you know what we do as women? We internalize, we overthink, we worried about the kids during the school day, we worried about us, we don't like the job, we don't like this, we don't like that. Because we're not complainers. Like me, I'm not a complainer. So I'm not going to say every little thing that I'm thinking, but these things are on my mind. So it's almost like being a woman is a constant. It's like you only can sleep for 8 hours because you sleep any longer, the child's hair don't get done. Mm-hmm. So it's like for everything is fat, and I'm just trying to figure out a way for women to be able to. And I know this conversation has to happen in part, right? But just trying to create like a regimen for women to again be soft, be feminine, and not feel overworked, overwhelmed, undervalued. When you could very well be receiving value but not feel it because you never get the opportunity to lay in that. You don't get the opportunity to just lay and just be, and just lay in silk and you don't sometimes get the realistically, right? You don't get a chance to lay in unless you're on vacation or or staycation. But for women it's difficult, which is why some women get exhausted and it's just like, I'm gonna get this job up or I'm gonna give it, because you just don't want to. None of us want to fight, right? Because we've been fighting. We just want to live out. I had a thought the other day. I'm gonna be very transparent. I had a thought the other day. I said, what would it feel? I wonder what it feels like to just live an extremely happy life with no problem. Mm-hmm. And I don't. It was just a thought, and I'm like, is that a thing? And God was like, yeah, that's a thing. It's a thing to be extra. You'll go through, what life would take you through, but you will be extremely, every day you wake up, you'll feel like you're in a dream. That's possible for women. I want the women who are watching, if you're receiving this, say I receive, but I want women to understand that you can wake up tomorrow and be living your dream. I'm not talking about the one that's made up on social media. You can really wake up. Your bank account can be what you want it. Your house can be the way you want it. You can buy what you want. We were going through stores this week and, Saks and Neiman's. And I was telling my daughter, we were in like like a galleria.
Mm-hmm.
And it was all exclusive designer. So my dude was like, no, I don't want to go in there. And I was like, listen, whatever you see, you can have it.
Mm-hmm.
The price, see, and I can mention Bible, I can mention all of that, but don't ever be afraid to go into a store because it don't cost you nothing to look. I can look all I want to. It don't cost you nothing to look, but if you see it, you can have it.
That's how you set goals. That is essentially how you set goals, and that's how I recommend to set goals. When I was doing them groups, look up the kind of car you want. Look up the type of place you want. How much do it cost? So you know what you need to get this thing that you want.
Mm-hmm.
But along the lines of what you're saying is the reason why I tell people you need to write down what you want on paper. You need to sit with yourself. You need to write it down. And you need to become what it is that you're writing. When I used to do this in the group, I would ask the guys, like, what kind of woman you want? What she got to do? She got to be smart. She got to make money. She got to be respectful. She got to do this. She got to do that. And I look back at them and say,
Yeah.
how many of these things are you? And we was at the jail then. So how many of these things are you? And it was like silence. You could hear a pin drop.
Yes.
And it's not
Yes.
me throwing shade, but
No,
it's me
that's
saying, I want you to look at what you're asking for.
Mm-hmm.
And if we're going to level the playing field, you got to be some of what you're asking for.
Yeah.
I want to touch on something that you said because, for so long I work with men, so I do got to advocate for them a little bit.
Yes.
So the women definitely need a soft space, but sometimes the thought of women is that men don't have some of the same fears as parents, as husbands, that women have as wives and mothers.
Mm-hmm.
Like they don't worry about their kids when they go to school. They are the ones that have to say everything is going to be okay when they scared their own self. If we both scared, but I got to be the one to tell you that it's going to be okay, and I got to be the one to fix it, protect it, provide it, no matter what. Right? Many of the reasons why some of the guys that we love dearly wind up incarcerated because I'm gonna get it done by any means necessary.
Yes.
Right. And so I think sometimes as women, we do gotta step back a little bit and consider if we're pressuring and how we're pressuring, because that drives anxiety and that drives a person to think that they're not good enough. And I can say I've been that woman before, so I know what it sounds like.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not a healthy space for a man because a man ego is different than a woman ego.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not a healthy space for a male ego to be in, to think that I can't never satisfy this woman.
Mm-hmm.
I can't never do nothing that's enough.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So I think we got to be careful a little bit with how we communicate the things. But I also think that again, in your relationship, anyone's relationship, you define what the roles are. In family therapy and couples counseling, I always ask, what's your role? And what you mean, what's my role?
Mm-hmm.
Role. What is it that you all have established that you supposed to do and that you supposed to do? What's the parent supposed to do? What's the child supposed to do? What the wife supposed to do? What the husband supposed to do? What the boyfriend supposed to do? What the girlfriend supposed to do? What is everybody supposed to do?
Yeah. Yeah.
And oftentimes we don't talk about it. Once again, in our head, this is what I always thought. This is what I always wanted. This is what I saw on TV. So you should just know because this is what everybody. No, this is your own personal relationship.
Yeah.
You can define it however you want to. And so I always think that some of what you're talking about got to do with emotional intelligence. And when we think about emotional intelligence and being emotionally available, the most part of it is just being there.
Mm-hmm.
Some people feel the pressure of if my partner's emotional, I gotta fix it and I gotta fix it right now. Maybe, maybe not. Maybe you just need to listen and be a comfort in space and just say, I understand how you feel. Y'all might come up with a solution together. It don't gotta be on one person to fix. The solution might be out there in the world from somebody else. It might not even be from y'all. Y'all can't fix it on your own. But essentially, the emotional availability says that I can be vulnerable with this emotion in front of you, man or woman. That space, that ability, I can be vulnerable. If your partner comes to you and says, I'm overwhelmed, I can't take this no more. It's not, well, you the woman, you supposed to cook and clean, so what? You the man, you supposed to go out there and get money, so what?
Yes.
I always say that when somebody says something like that, optimally, you sit and talk about what it is, and everybody need to think of something we can do to make it lighter for this person at that time. Because there's no reason for anybody to come to you and say, I'm overwhelmed, fearful, and exhausted, and it's BS. No, it's a real thing. And so if I can lift a little bit from you, at least for a period of time for you to feel better, then you can feel heard, then you can get that energy. And that go for both sides.
How about if you go, because and this I mentioned this earlier. I asked it, but I'm gonna say it a different way. But what happens when you're going with your feelings, right? And to say, I'm trying to think of an example. You go basically saying, you don't spend enough time with me, and you're saying how you feel about a thing, but the response could possibly be they blow up. Well, what do you mean? It's almost like now they've inserted themselves and they've given you the same thing you said to them, they gave it back to you. And I think that's a mechanism of just not to deal, right? Just not to deal with whatever the previous request was. It's defensive. How do you many of us are trying to create something we've never seen before. If you've never seen a healthy marriage, even my grandmother and grandfather, they stayed married for years until my grandmother passed January 2nd. She still was married to my deceased grandfather, but they were separated for so many years because my grandmother was in church. My grandfather was a city slicker. She just felt like, these are my vows, but I'm not going to live in the house with you. I'm going to go and travel. I'm going to do this because we got these 5 kids together. But as I look at it now, that was not healthy. And I said to my grandmother, because I am the one that I'm able to talk to my I'm not going to say I was, because I know that she's not with me, but I still have conversations, right? I have conversations with my grandmother that my mother couldn't have. So my grandmother may say, no, and so-and-so shouldn't leave. And I said, well, Grandma, why would you if somebody's being beaten, why would you tell somebody not to leave? We had that conversation maybe about 10 years ago. It was almost like she had never heard it before. So while our grandmothers were saying we gotta stay and don't leave, but a person can really be just completely unhappy. She's being abused, the kids are being abused. I mean, nothing's going right, but they will tell you to stay. I'm telling you no. Right? But many of us are trying to be what we've never seen. So we're trying to be amazing wives. We've never seen an amazing wife. Trying to be a great husband, but dad wasn't in the house. So again, you're dealing with all these different elements, all of these different vices. It's so much going on, and you're just trying to, which is why people walk away from relationships, though, because you're fighting with who you are as an individual. You're fighting with all the people down at the job. You're fighting with all the people that you thought were friends. It's all of these things going on, but your priority is still your family, and you're just trying to keep it together.
So the thing of, I'm going to say 2 things. So one thing, back to your example, right? If I say you don't spend enough time with me, one of the rules of fair fighting, that sounds like an accusatory statement. So most people's natural instinct is to be defensive. They gonna reach for whatever time they spent. I was with you last night. I did this, I did that. And so that may not be what you mean. Again, it's about defining and be a little more direct. I would like to do this with you. Now, reasonable, right? Now, you got somebody that works 16 hours a day and you want to go on a date.
That's not fair. I don't think that that's fair.
You know what I'm saying? Like, so you gotta be reasonable a little bit. And if you want them to adjust to 16 hours, they gotta be a bigger conversation.
Yes,
but
yes.
I think that it's like that it's a defensiveness, but I think that we gotta do a little bit better with being more clear. We gotta sit with ourselves and say, what is it that we actually want? Do I want intimacy? Do I want to go out? Do I want it to just be you and I with no kids? Like, what is it that I'm asking for? And really be more specific, exact to what it is that you want, to see, once again, can we influence each other? Can we come to a middle where I can get a little bit of what I want? Because essentially, when people get what they want, it's a little pep in their step, it's a little bop in they walk, and everybody can walk around happy.
Yeah, and you don't gotta hit nobody's mouth. You get little gifts here and there every now, because but I think you said something big. When a conversation's being had, there's a lot of give, a lot of take. You're making it work, but you're able to say, this is what I want, or this is what I need. And I'm saying this from a safe, hear my heart, I'm saying this from a safe place, it opens up a bigger, because then they leave feeling confident to say, that wasn't so bad, right?
We can understand each other a little bit more, because I always tell people, when you heading into a conversation, think of your goal. Okay. If I want us to be on the same page and things to get better, if I go in a conversation cussing you out, is that really working to the goal?
Yeah.
Probably not. So have your goal in mind, have in mind what you really want, and that will better guide the way that you present what you're trying to say. I want to also say that, like, you can learn what it is that you feel like you never had. Okay. So I talk about re-education. That's one thing. Re-education is things that we thought was right. My uncle say you gotta smack them to put them in check. Things that we thought was right, that later on in life we feel like, that's not what I want to do. We gotta relearn.
Yeah.
We gotta re-educate of who do I want to be? Even if everybody around me was like that, who do I want to be? But the other part of it, if it's not relearning, we have to get introduced. That's the value in mentors. And that's the reason I'm a mentor. And that's the reason I recommend people have mentors. I have mentors, because you do need to look at somebody and say, I want to be something like that. I want to be able to speak like that. I want to be able to deliver my message like that. Like I want to, and be able to let them model and teach you how to do that. Sometimes it's a real person. Sometimes it's somebody they got a YouTube channel that's guiding you and mentoring you through where it needs to be. Sometimes it's somebody at your church, a married couple there. But the goal is somebody that you admire and you respect, that you can hear, that don't gotta beat you in the head, but you can hear it. But I think that we gotta be willing to learn. So many times the excuse is given to me, and I'm gonna call it an excuse because I'm in a space that I can say that. I didn't know. Nobody ever taught me. You can't say that till you 50, 60, till you die. You gotta decide if you want to learn. It's a bunch of stuff that some people in your first podcast, Raised on Survival, were never taught. We didn't heard all the stories. We didn't have situations. It's things that people were never taught. So you have to have a willingness to learn. But if you shut that off, trauma response, I don't want to listen to nobody. I don't want to hear nothing from nobody. I don't care what they talking about. Then you're cutting yourself at the knees. You're not giving yourself an opportunity to be the better you that you want to be. If I don't know how to be a husband, I need to go talk to some husbands.
Yeah.
I don't know how to be a wife. I need to go talk to some wives that marriages are working, that the men seem happy. What are you doing? And one of the biggest things, and I told you I was going to say this, that I often see couples go through these standoffs. And I did it too when I was married. We go through these standoffs. I ain't cooking. I ain't having sex. I'm not doing this. We go through these standoffs to try to get the behavior that we want, right? We on the same team. These are two adults. This is a partnership. Sometimes the standoff not gonna get you where you trying to go. Somebody gotta take a step forward and say what they're willing to do that's different than what we've been doing. What we've been doing ain't working. So what is it different that we want to do? And if we can't figure it out on our own, we need to go get some help. But that standoff of what we not about to do and how that's going to go and carry on, all we doing is stunting our development and staying stuck in a stuck spot where we could be growing to that happy world that you talking about if we start taking the steps towards each other versus away from each other, backing up into our trauma of I ain't about to let you get over on me. Nothing from me.
Because everybody has gotten over on me, and I feel like you know, and when you go into something new, this is me speaking, and I'm not the therapist, right? You are. When you go into something new, dead things do have to die. Old things do have to die, right? Two things, and I agree with you on the, what you can't use for an excuse. See, in a space like this, it was safe for you to say it, and you had to preface it with this isn't shade, but I'm gonna say it. This is shade. You cannot say that you don't know how to do something when we live in a world of Google and a world of TikTok. You learn how to get around, you learn how to go, you learn how to be, you learn how to set up, you learn how to put something together. You got to learn that too, especially if your spouse is requesting it or you feel like it's something that you want your spouse to have. You got to learn that. You cannot, because this is male and female.
Yes.
Right? I watch a lot of YouTubes. Most of the time my TV is set on a podcast or YouTube because I want to learn, right? And I want to learn new. I want to learn bigger. You want to keep things going. You want to keep things flowing. So I definitely could not, for a long time, I didn't do a lot of cooking because I said, I'm not going to be doing all of this stuff. I want to be able to do this stuff when I get a bigger family. People didn't even know that I could cook. Well, I said, God, I can cook enough to get by, but I want to know how to cook. I never took a cooking class. I made a request. And people who eat my food, now I'm not a master chef, but I can cook well enough to say the food is good and give you leftovers, right? But that is something that I wanted because I knew my daughter had to eat. My husband got to eat. I got to eat. Google is your friend. Open up the phone. Y'all be doing everything else. Open up the phone and you can hear my passion talking, right? Because I hear women say, oh, I don't know how to cook. Somebody need to teach me. I don't know how to do that. Girl, that's an excuse.
Go learn.
That's an excuse. You can learn. Get everything you need off TikTok before they shut it down. TikTok will teach you any and everything.
Yes.
We were in Miami and I said, where we going? I went on TikTok, where to go in Miami. Where's the best food? So you cannot use that for an excuse no longer.
Right.
The other thing you mentioned, we have these standoffs, all these, withholding things like you're filing your taxes. Here's the thing, because I'm a woman and I am a woman of God, the Bible, and I'm speaking to wives and to husbands, the Bible even tells us that your body don't even belong to you. You cannot withhold sex from your spouse. I don't care what you're thinking, what's going on. Now, if it's something going on and it's just, your mind is too cluttered, that is fine. But even in that, there's still things that can be done while your mind is cluttered because you have an obligation to your spouse. You have an obligation to your husband. You have an obligation to your wife because a lot of times in relationships, that is what's missing. She's not walking around. She ain't walking around because she don't have any money. She or he right? This isn't gender specific. It could just be the intimacy. You
But
know,
I'm gonna say that in my experience when talking to people, this be starting while people step out. And I'm not condoning nobody stepping out on their relationship, not condoning that. But a person has a need. A person's love language is physical touch, and you have shut that off. You don't know what the love languages are? Go to YouTube, put in love languages defined, and it will give you a 5-6 minute video that will explain it crystal clear. But essentially, if that's what your partner needs, you got to be more considerate of those needs, because they going to eat at somebody's house. They going to deal with somebody else. We could have settled this in house. Not condoning that decision. I think that it should be the conversation and you should try to work on it within. But I'm being honest about the conversations I've had with people, and that this is the rationale. I've asked for this thing. I want this thing. It's not taking place. I ain't leaving the house that my name on the deed in, but I'm gonna go do a little bit of what I want to get this other stuff that I want that I'm not getting at home. But it's still going back to the foundation of the safe space, the being able to communicate and influence each other. And if we need to include somebody else to help us get along, like I was watching Married to Medicine, and for some of the men who get older, they brought up a good point. The doctor's testosterone was low.
Yeah.
That changed how he was behaving. Sometimes we gotta health is wealth. We gotta check our physical health. We want to feel good about ourselves. I hear a lot of women say they lose interest because they don't feel good about your body. Well, in this day, there's plenty of ways to lose weight. So you got to decide if that's really your thing. And I'll tell anybody in therapy, if we're going to keep coming back to you being insecure about your weight, you could stop seeing me for a month and take that money to a nutritionist, a weight loss program, and lose the weight and come back and see me. Because whatever it is, if we can change it, we shouldn't keep coming back to this thing.
Yes.
Because your partner feel good about you. You don't feel good about you.
Yes.
You gotta go deal with that somewhere else. It can't be that our whole relationship suffers. And I highly recommend that people also, you can consider a sex therapist, you can consider TikTok, YouTube, anything else for that insight. But I also recommend that people consider non-sexual intimacy as well. Google it, look it up. It's some different things that you can do to be intimate with your partner that doesn't include sex. And the main reason why that's important is because I've watched people go through things where sex wasn't an option. Somebody get sick, somebody have a medical condition, it could be anything, and that's not an option right now. So how do we connect if we don't have that? I'm still going to say it's important, but I'm also going to say that versatility, that willingness to learn, going back to what you're saying, Google and looking up all these things, it start with willingness. Start with willingness. People push people to me all the time, and I say in a minute, if they're not willing, I'm not even about to start, because essentially you cultivate your own willingness to change. It's not just because I stuck you in front of somebody and I'm telling you to change. You got to be willing to. I want to.
Yeah, I want to piggyback because I mentioned this before, and the ladies know. And some of them will go back and watch it. I know DCPS is on spring break, so people are on vacation, but they'll go back and watch. A lot of my girls who are on every week, they'll go back. But I'm gonna speak to this because I've been saying it. If there's something you don't like about, I am an advocate, and this is what a lot of people don't know, but you gonna know. I'm an advocate for body enhancement. If you don't like it, fix it. If you want to change it, change it. And when you make that decision, make the decision and stand on it. You don't got to run and get a group of girls together and explain to them what you want and get their approval. You go and you do that. It's nobody's business. When you come out and you step out and you're in a swimsuit, then they'll see you. It's nobody's business about the decision that you have chosen to make. The second part, as it relates to intimacy. There's so many things that you can get to enhance your sexual drive, whether it's, you know, a pill. He may not be to the level of Cialis or Viagra or, you know, women. Some women, you know, things just dry up. But there's so many other things that you can use. It's your bedroom. That's your spouse. The marriage bed is undefiled. That is your man. That is your woman. You can do whatever you want with your man and with your woman. And that's between you, them, and God. God prefers for you to make your spouse happy, be intimate with you, because that is the time that you are one, right? That is the time when you are at your closest, right? And when you're married, God does get glory when you lay with your spouse. So whatever, even, and when I say lay with your spouse, like you say, they may be at a place where things are in the way of them being able to you know, get an erection or things like that. There are other things, you being held, that it makes you whole, because when you neglect your spouse, it does. Even if you got the baddest spouse, and not bad as in her body is everything and his body is everything, when you deny your spouse or you don't pay them any attention in the intimacy department, it does make them feel like, it makes them feel insecure. Like, why doesn't she want me? Why doesn't she touch me? Why doesn't he? It makes them, so you gotta consider your partner too. So in marriage, it's not just you. You got to consider your partner and their needs. They need food. They need a plate of food in front of them, but they need you in front of them as well. And we don't have these conversations. We definitely don't have them in church. But women need to feel safe to have conversations like this. And, you know, I had surgery. The first person I told was my husband. And I didn't even do it for him. I said, this is something that I wanted, but I wanted to wait to get your approval because I wanted you to be able to sit in that with me. Didn't consult with no girlfriends. I went, took my trip and went alone, right? But he was supportive. That's also key. Oh, having a supportive spouse. Because you can't do all of what you do, and I can't do all of what I do and not be supported.
Right.
Right. And I wear a lot of hats. So my ministry is in the marketplace. So I'm outside talking to people. I'm talking to returning citizens, male and female. I'm talking to grieving families. I'm talking to broken. I'm everywhere. But on top of that, I'm an ordained deaconess at church. So when I can be in church on a Sunday and be completely drained, right?
Exactly.
You need a spouse that understands that. So some days, on Sundays like that, I'm not going to cook. I might order out, or it may be but he understands that. Right. Whether he understands the whole thing about anointing or not, he understands, oh, it was that kind of church today. Yeah. And so this is what it's going to be. Support is big. I would say communication at the top, but support, I wouldn't want to be around people that didn't support me, and I wouldn't want best friend, because that's just crazy that, and I'm not talking about support me in products. I'm talking about being supported, root for me.
That's right. That's right.
Women love to have their ego stroked too. Root for me. You know, the other day I was in the house looking crazy, and my husband is famous for somebody calling him on FaceTime, and he'll say, "Here go my wife," and I'll be like, but he has something that he's proud of. He can say, because sometimes when they call him, it's like they want to talk to me anyway, because people are proud that he's proud and he's happy. And I'm just like, good thing I see them as family, because he'll turn that phone around in a minute. But that is another level of support. And I think support is, women, you do have men that work 16 hours. Sis, hello, you cannot scroll TikTok all day long, whether you can't go to work, come home, scroll TikTok. You've done nothing. You've considered that man not one time, and you wonder why. Because see, everybody has a role to play. Like you say, we always advocate for men, because I'm guilty of that too. I kind of found a little balance a little bit, but you've been scrolling all day. You've done nothing. Nothing that includes, you don't have, there's nothing, not a grilled cheese cooked. Grilled cheese and tomato soup is a meal, niece.
It's his prize. It's his prize mindset. You know, I'm the prize. I'm the catch. You need to be
Oh,
happy, and that's a big ego. Go on, y'all say that's a big ego to have in a partnership. Because if you the prize, what's your partner? If you feel like you don't gotta do nothing, like, are we trying to build together, or are we trying to create a divide?
yeah.
So you are right, and just to say, like, the support, that's another reason why dealing with yourself as an individual is important, because you can't root for somebody until you willing to see somebody else other than you.
Mm-hmm.
If you always thinking about woe is me, this ain't right for me, you can't see nobody else. You don't got the capacity to
Yeah.
want well for nobody else. If you think, even in a marriage, sometimes I often feel there are many men that are depressed because they do feel overwhelmed with their level of responsibility, and there is no outlet because I'm the protector, I'm the provider, I'm supposed to be all these things. And so where do I get my cup filled from if my wife or my significant other takes another role that, well, I work, well, I take care of these kids, like, how do I get my cup filled?
Mm-hmm.
um and or just feeling like I've had to place my family, men and women begin to feel like I've placed my family first, and I've lost sight of individual me, and the things I enjoy as an individual have no place in my life right now, and I miss them, and I want more of them in my world.
Mm-hmm.
We gotta talk, we gotta communicate, because there's still an individual self. There's a role and responsibility in a relationship, but there's still an individual self. And when people don't get the opportunity to relish in their individual self and their individual goals, they can become depressed.
Mm-hmm.
And they may not ever say it or even be able to recognize it, but it will show in their behavior: negative, quiet, withdrawn, always seem like they mind somewhere else. Because
Mm-hmm.
I'm wishing and hoping of this other thing that I'm having difficulty seeing for myself, because I'm so caught up in everybody needs. People
Mm-hmm.
got kids with special needs. People
Yeah.
got kids with illnesses that if they sneeze wrong, they got to go to the ER, and they in the ER every other week. Like, it
Yeah.
be layers on
Yeah.
top of layers.
Yes.
People that take care of their spouses and their family, their parents, and everything else. It be layers on top of layers. You got to roll in the church, all these different things. People need us. So our significant other is always going to have to share us with somebody else because we're for the people, so it's these different competing priorities,
Mm-hmm.
and it's still the individual self.
Mm-hmm.
So, full circle, deal with individual you and create a strong, firm foundation of knowing who you are, what you want, what complements your life.
Mm-hmm.
When you come into another person, remembering you're in a partnership, not just you anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It's a team, and we on the same team. We're not on opposite teams. We're on
Yeah.
the same team. Communicate, build your safe spaces, and even if it don't go well, keep trying. I know you had asked, like, well, when do you walk away? How do we know when?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. 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 When do you know when it's time to? Because some people, some people have been conditioned again to believe you can't ever leave. You're not supposed to leave, and God gonna strike you down if you leave. And then some people have been told, "Oh, just leave, just leave, just leave." But I'm talking about to the mature, to the willing individual who wants to, who's to the fighter, right? When do you know? I don't even know if I want to ask that, because some people could just be really at capacity. They've exhausted everything. It's like, I can't seem to get through. This is not going to work. And I always say, I want people around me to be happy, whatever that looks like. I want you to, because like I said, what I want for others, what I want for myself.
Mm-hmm.
That's a friend. I want for my friend what I want for me. And so if I'm going to say, God, I want to wake up and I just want to be happy, I want people to experience that. Life, the communities, the areas we live in are already stressful enough. What would you say to someone who wants to leave, or what are the signs that you'll see and it's time to leave?
So this is what I was going to say. I would never tell anybody to leave their marriage or leave their relationship. I believe that would never be my place to tell somebody this is what you need to do. I think people need to take personal evaluation of themselves and their health. I have a saying, you're either living or you're dead.
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean by that is, of course, we know that if you actually pass away. But when I say you could be living a life, you could be alive and breathing, but dead on the inside.
Mm-hmm.
You have no aspirations, you are not connected. You could be very much dead on the inside. And so when we start thinking about leaving and different things, I think you owe it to yourself to try as much as you can until you feel like you can't try anymore. Realistically, knowing that you actually tried real things. But I also think you got to look at what the relationship is doing to you.
Mm-hmm.
And if you got kids, what it's doing to your kids. If it feels like I can't be my best self in this relationship, I'm anxious on edge all the time. I'm sad. I'm depressed all the time. I've tried everything. I can't even go to work and think straight. I don't even recognize myself anymore.
Mm.
It probably is time that you take a step back. It's not that people can't come back together, because they can, but sometimes people are healthier away from each other. And I just think that some people are not willing to accept that. You become codependent, and so you're addicted to this person, and you are just stuck in the connection and function of this person just because it's been so long.
Mm-hmm.
But you're not thriving. You have no identity, and you're unhappy.
Mm-hmm.
And so happiness is a big thing, but happiness isn't a given.
Yeah.
Happiness comes from within.
And
You have to
happiness
build
comes
happiness.
when something's happening, right? Because happiness can shift into something else. And I would also say, and I could be wrong because again, you're the professional, that everyone has deal breakers, right?
And
Some
you got
people
like you have life experience, okay? So
yeah. Now listen,
and you're
and
educated. So yes.
that's a whole other the life experience. That's a whole other podcast. Setting the table. I used to say this in Department of Corrections. I used to tell the guys, you got to set your table, right? And when you set your table, what you want is on that table. It's almost like having the conversation. Nobody knows what you want unless you tell them and be expressive about what you want. So it is with women. They're deal breakers. Everybody have them.
Yep.
My deal breaker has always been, don't ever invite me for no threesome because I'm not doing that. Right? That's a deal breaker. People have deal breakers. You cannot do it. You better not cross the line. That is, don't even ask me. Know what your deal breakers are.
Absolutely.
Make
You
sure
gotta
your
know what
spouse
your
know what your deal breakers are, right? And I'm not talking about nothing petty. I'm talking about, okay, because again, this would have to be another podcast. Why do you feel like someone else needs to come in, right? Is it for fun? Is it for pleasure? Is it for an experiment? And I'm not knocking nobody that do it. For me, it's just a deal breaker. But knowing what your deal breakers are also is very helpful in making sure your spouse knows that deal breaker for some women is you got one time to hit me, right? You got one time to steal, you got one time to touch a child, anything. People have deal breakers and we must know. So I know as we start to wrap up, I want you to do one thing for two different audiences. One, I want you to speak to men that are in relationships and that is trying, that want to make it work, but still kind of struggle with that again. Um, the learned traumas, the learned behavior, all of those things. And same for women. Because not only do you want people to be their best selves, but you want them to be their best selves with their spouses while they're married,
Absolutely.
while they're successful, while they're wealthy, and all of that. Because it makes no sense for me to be living in bliss as a wife and my husband's drowning, and vice versa. He's able to live and gamble and do, and I'm swimming in a pool of depression and don't know if I'm going or coming.
So I want people to remember that I told them this April 18th. I told you this. Some of the biggest challenge in your life is going to be working with another person through something that you might have thought you would not work with them through. Okay, that's a life challenge. Okay, some people say their deal breaker is cheating and whatnot. Some people really work and do the work, and they're able to move past that. There are some things that are just absolutely a deal breaker, need to be defined. We need to know, and we need to decide what we're going to do. But I feel like in this generation, I have to say it because, especially the singles, they quick to walk away when they dating or when they just in a relationship. They quick to walk away. Like, oh, you breathing wrong today? I can go find me somebody that breathes right. Don't worry. And the challenge of your life sometimes is like, you're going to let this thing remove you from all this other stuff. So your challenge is to learn how to work with another person, even when you're not pleased with their behavior.
Mm-hmm.
But big picture, when you're talking about men and women in relationships that want to make it work, I really think that if you and your partner are struggling together, you should consider getting you some individual help. And by that, I mean, you need to unpack this with a third party that don't know you, that don't know y'all, that you are willing to receive something from, because you might not can't hear it in your personal space because you've heard it the same way so much that it just you can't hear it. Same way people drown out their baby crying sometimes. I hear it all the time. I can do this while they doing that. I don't hear it. You got to go and enter a space where you can hear. Because I often realize that a lot of the breakdown is we react to how we feel about something, not always what's being said, not always what's going on. If I feel like you saying something, then I'm reacting to how it feel and I don't like it, but it may not what actually have been said. So that's why I need to go to a third party and I have to begin to talk about what's the problem that I see in my marriage or in my relationship. What is the problem? If you got a good therapist, they're going to help you to take some accountability to see yourself in the problem. Because the other person is not the problem. I always ask people, go back to the beginning. You can tell me all this bad stuff. So what attracted you to the person in the beginning? I want to know. Because they couldn't have been all this stuff that you saying if you fell in love with them, you married them. They couldn't have been all this bad stuff. So let's go back to that and let's try to remember that person. Okay, let's remember that person that we fell in love with, that we were attracted to, that we thought so highly of. Let's remember that that person is still that person. Okay. But let's go and figure out what is the problem in our communication, in the relationship. What is the problem? And am I willing to fix it? When people come to therapy with me and they talk about it and they go to sleep with that person at night, I say, well, you're still there. So you can't be ready to be done. So what is it that you want? And sometimes I have to clarify that some of their needs are very individual things that is not your spouse's responsibility. Your spouse cannot heal 30 years of trauma that you went through before they met you. That's very unfair burden to give to another person. That
I think you should repeat that. And I see that a lot.
Yes.
Because the trauma is so much and they don't know how to unpack it. They either lash out on the spouse for the 30 years of trauma, or they blame them for it, right? Or male and female.
Mm-hmm.
That's a really big thing. And again, emotional intelligence, you got to know that that's what it is.
Yes.
Sometimes you got to sit still long enough and discern what it is. And so that's a gift that I'm glad that I have, is discernment, right? You can, even in friendships, being able to discern, what is this? Because I know that I didn't, or that wasn't my intent when I did X, Y, and Z. And I am sorry that you took it that way, but you took it that way because of the 30 years
everything else, all of that made you take what I said to you, being vulnerable, being honest. You took it to heart because maybe you heard it 20 other times from somebody else that was trying to hurt you. You can't recognize that I'm not trying to hurt you. I'm trying to share with you what I feel like you're doing to me. Essentially, I'm sharing my hurt. I ain't trying to hurt you. I'm trying to share my hurt. But then you throw your hurt back at me. Now we both hurt, and now we just stuck. And so I really think that people do have to realize, like, your spouse is not there. A relationship is not there to heal you from everything. A relationship is there to complement you, yes, but it's not there to heal everything that existed before you even knew this person. And you can't throw at them, well, you know, I went through this, and they're not a therapist. They don't know how that impacts you.
Yeah.
You might hope that they understand. Now I have to study human behavior, so I can say I've done all the research. I know how certain things impact people, but that's my profession. It's not everybody's profession. People don't know that. And it's very unfair to place that burden on somebody. And I feel like that's where the individual therapy again becomes so important, because you need to use that space to unpack what you've gone through and realize that you're triggered by your spouse because of everything that happened to you before. And you need to decide how to put peace to what happened to you before, be it incarceration, be it a failed relationship, baby mama tried.
That incarceration piece, I'm actually going to do a podcast, and I'm gonna have it set up like a panel, because a lot of the guys been asking to come on, because some of them kind of struggle, and I understand it. Being incarcerated, doing the same thing every day, the same way, being told, that is a lot, especially for men who've always been leaders. Then you come out, you want to reclaim your spot, right? Whether it's in the street or not, but we see that you are a leader, but give us some grace, because we don't understand all of what happened behind the wall.
You've been institutionalized. You've had to fight for your life every day. You know that you might got a knife and the next person got a knife too. So now what?
One of us gonna make it out alive, right?
Yeah, I always have a saying: if you ain't never been behind that wall, you ain't never been behind that wall. Mm-hmm. And so you really don't. And a lot of people don't discuss it. So the dark side is you real, you made it out, you strong, and the strength is celebrated. But that dark side is often not discussed because it's so dark and painful. Once again, so dark and painful. I don't want to go there.
Yeah.
And so it's just really learning. And this is why the whole thing about self-discovery, you got to learn you. You got to learn with what your triggers are, what you've been through, how it impacts you, how it makes you represent yourself. And then you got to decide, do I want to continue the way I am, or am I open to change? Do I want something else? You got to really, really begin to think about that and take somebody's hand and let them walk with you to the change that you want to make. That's why I do the work that I do, and I'll never stop, because once I understand where somebody comes from, what they've been through, I understand why they are how they are, just like I understand 2 + 2 = 4. It always makes sense. I don't got to agree with it, but it makes logical sense. The day it stops, I will quit. It has not stopped making sense. I don't care what a person done. Like I know, I'm in a room with 33 murderers, and they got my utmost respect.
Yes.
because I understood where they came from and why they
Yeah.
felt like they had to make the
Yeah.
decisions that they made. So
Yeah.
essentially, you got to walk through your own healing before you willing to share your life with another person. And if it so happens in reverse that you're already sharing your life with another person and you haven't walked through your own healing, then you have to be willing to walk through your own healing while you're in a relationship
Mhm.
for the longevity of the relationship. It doesn't mean don't.
Mhm.
It means still do that, but you do have a support behind you while you're doing it versus doing it alone.
Alone. My last question would be self-discovery.
Mhm.
How does one go through the self-discovery process? Is that a process that you and I know you have an answer, but I'm thinking about something in my head.
Mhm.
When we talk about self-discovery, I think self-discovery is an individual exercise and activity, right? I feel like that is when you look into the mirror and if even if it's you looking into the mirror naked, right? Looking at yourself saying, "This is who I am. This is what I love about me. This is what I don't like about me." I feel like to thine own self be true. When you're able to accept who you are and who you don't want to be, a burden is lifted. You have your walls are up, your defenses are up, your work, everything is going on at one time, but you got to take self inventory of yourself to be able to say, and I do this every night, right? Being able to say, um, okay, you sent me something. Okay.
No,
Being
you fine. I'm gonna tell you what that is in a minute.
okay. Being able to say, this is who I am. These are the good qualities about me that I like about me. I can build on these things, but I don't like this part.
Yeah.
And we'll talk offline about that, but I do it often. It's like I don't like this part of me, right? I don't want to be like this. I don't want to be a resemblance of what I saw in my parents, kind of thing, right? So where do you start with self-discovery? With what would you say to someone that want to do that, and then two, put your where can they find you? Um, and she's not for free, she's for hire. Where can they find you? Because I've been telling you all, you need a therapist just like you need air. It is important. You cannot, with everything that's happening in the world right now, you cannot try to walk through life without a therapist. It's impossible.
So shameless plug. I wrote a journal. It's called the Starter Journal.
Yes.
And it has a lot to do. Thank you. It has a lot to do with what you're saying. I took the prompts in the journal from different conversations I had with various clients, and it is a part of the journal. I'm sorry, a part of the journey to self-discovery. And the reason being, so if you willing to sit with yourself, then you got to sit with yourself. If you willing to sit with yourself and try to process, then journaling is a good way to sit with yourself and try to process. This journal is going to ask some of those questions. What are some of your negative self talk? These things that you're telling yourself over and over again that you know are negative. What are 10 positives that you can give yourself to counteract those negatives? What are some spaces that you feel like you are stuck in?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We got to sit. And if I'm trying to discover self, I do need to start baseline. What do I like? What don't I like? What makes me uncomfortable? What makes me thrive? Okay. I need to start there. Really, really thinking about that. If I'm struggling to do that on my own, I need to talk to somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And a therapist will help walk you through, guiding you through these questions and answering, letting you answer and kind of reaffirming what you're saying so you can hear it out loud, not just in your self talk, not just in your thoughts, but you can hear it out loud that, wow, okay, from what I've described and from what I've shared, I really am a person that doesn't like conflict. I'm really, really low conflict. And so all the time, I've removed myself from people that's challenged me because I don't like conflict. Now, conflict is a part of life. Now I got to learn how to manage conflict because it's not going to go away. And I can't end. Your therapist is going to tell you can't end every relationship because of conflict. So how do I learn to work up against conflict, especially conflict I can't walk away from? So I say it really begins with sitting with yourself, examining reoccurring problems. I always ask people when I say, well, what you think your spouse would say the problem is? And they say, I don't know. What do you hear? What are they saying?
Yeah,
'Cause I
yeah, yeah.
know there's an argument. I know there's something. Somebody's saying something. What are they saying? And then you really got to look objectively. Objectivity says look at yourself outside yourself.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times with a big ego, we will say that a behavior is okay because it's us. But if somebody was doing that to us, we'd be like, oh no, you're not. So that means that I need to take a look at myself objectively and
Mm-hmm.
say, hey, this is not okay for nobody. It's not just okay because it's me. It's not okay for anybody to do this because I know golden rule, I don't want anybody to treat me like this.
Mm-hmm.
Treating people like I want to be treated.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to look at where you continue to see a problem. Is there a trend? You got to be vulnerable to talk about,
Mm-hmm.
I don't like this and not be in denial about it. You got to, no, I don't like
Yeah.
this about me. I don't like when this happens. And
And
then
I
we begin to peel back the layers and start working on it. And you usually need, therapy, a mentor, a life coach to try to walk you through, okay, how do I put this all together? Because a lot of people know what upsets them and what hurts them. We just don't know what to do about it. And
Mhm.
that's why sometimes we need another person to kind of help guide us through those things. So a lot of especially my young people, 23 to 32, they on the journey of self-discovery. They trying to put all this life
Yeah.
experience together and really say, like, okay, I went through all of this, and this is what this means for me. And so now we can create boundaries because now I understand this is what this means for me because this is harmful to me and whatever else. I'm not going to just say, like, oh, it stops at 30. No, it doesn't. Some of
Yeah.
us, our learning curve is going to be stunted because of trauma. Trauma stops the clock. So you could be 50 experiencing somebody 20 experiences because trauma stops the clock. So I don't want to be ageist with it. I'm just giving an example. But you really got to sit and take a real objective look at you and say, this is where I constantly see something that I want to see something different. This is where I realize I'm the happiest and I thrive the most.
Mm-hmm.
Then I know I need more of this. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So that's like the discovery piece in that way.
Okay. Tell me the name of your book again, because it broke up the link, but I want to type in the name. So, and I want you all who are watching, I want you to go to Amazon, purchase her book. Start there at least if you are not ready to pursue therapy, but start with the book.
Yes.
And she's going to give her information. So her email address, I believe I have it. I'm going to post her email address in the chat. Feel free to email
Email
her.
me. I do respond. Email me. I do respond. You know, this is my passion. I help people. But this is called the Starter Journal. And it's by me, Talisha Allaby. If you put it in Amazon, it should come up. And I think it's just I think it's a good place to start to learn how to sort your thoughts. That's what I made it for. Like if you even think like by the end of the book, it tells you like you probably know you need to go to therapy or you need to decide your next step once you get to the end. Because after you go through these prompts and you start processing, something's likely going to come up for you and you need to decide if it's something that you still need to deal with or not. You know what I mean?
Look at the email address and see if I wrote it in there right.
Where's that?
Let me see. Can you look up there in the?
Yeah, I see it. It's correct.
So that's her email address. Write her email address down. Put it in your notes so that you have it. I am going to purchase the book as soon as we get off the line. But see, these books are like what I've noticed about myself, I've been doing lately, because I know life moves fast, so I don't really have time to crack open a book.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been downloading. Hold. That phone ringing. So I'll order a book, right, and put it on Audible. As soon as I get in the car, I turn it on. So that's what works for me. When I know I have a small self-help book, I'll read some of it. I will open it up, read some of it before I go to bed. But these things are important because, like you said, I believe with all that you've said, it starts with self-discovery.
Yes.
Because even in self-discovery, you're saying, I need more, I need to do more, or I need help, or I need guidance. But you have to, because no people can come to you all every day and say you should do X, Y, Z. And like you said, if you're not willing, we're just having a conversation.
That's right.
Right. And it's no need to do that. So self-discovery is definitely key. It is important.
And this is a journal, and it's intentionally not an audio book or electronic book, because there is something that happens when you write that goes in your brain. They're brief prompts. You're supposed to sit somewhere with the intention of focusing in on yourself. You ain't supposed to be driving on the fly. You ain't supposed to. It's designed like this very intentionally for you to take the time to really think and process. And we're going to decide our next step. So it's very intentional in that way.
Okay, I'm gonna definitely order it because I know it's gonna be helpful to me. I know you, first of all, I want to say thank you, because I know we've been going back and forth with our schedules. We've been busy, but we managed to make this happen. And like I said, we're in a new season. This is so important. This conversation is important, and I know, when I do podcasts like this, when the conversation is so rich, and it's an intimate conversation, I don't get a lot of people in the chat, because it's like, no, I'm listening, or it stirs up emotion in people. It causes people to see themselves, or causes people to say, I gotta walk away from this and make a decision. I gotta have a better me, so it's all of that. So I would get a lot of messages after. You'll get a lot of messages after, because I know my following, right? I know my supporters. I know my collaborators. That's what I call them. They come here for help, right? They come here to hear from people who are experienced in a different topic. And I always say to them, I won't bring you somebody that I won't sit and talk to.
Right.
I won't bring you somebody that don't have nothing to give you, no substance to give you. If I bring you somebody, it is because they have one experience, whether it's life experience, institution experience, they have knowledge, they will have it. And so when you get it and you take it, it'll work for you if you work it. Amen. It only works if you work it. And so
that's right.
I know this was good for me. I definitely was not going to cancel, no matter where I was and what was going on. This was important, and it's important for us to do a part two.
Yes.
A check-in. But I think what we did, we could have gone deeper if we wanted to, right? I think we laid the foundation really, really well. Right. But I think Talisha did an amazing job.
Thank you.
But I'm going to say, right, because she's spoken and she's spoken well, and it's always me. I got to come back, and I'll say it and I'll give you a Band-Aid, but don't keep complaining about the things you don't like, right? If you're bald, they're making wigs.
Okay. Men and women.
Making lace front. Yes, men and women. Get a stocking cap, glue something, get a quick weave, do something. They are giving out whatever that's Ozempic.
Yes.
You stop complaining about your image. Fix it. If you don't have no eyebrows, draw them. Draw them. Because we have to stop making all these excuses about, I don't feel pretty. Well, why? Why, niece? What is it that you want? Buy it.
Do the work.
Get care credit, right? Care credit will make yourself feel like you want to feel. Because if you're single, it ain't no need in you being single and not liking yourself and thinking you can enter into a relationship. And no, you got to go in there knowing that you cheat already.
How do you go into a healthy relationship if you're not healthy? Okay, so I, I'm
And
gonna
we
let
can
us
end on
back
that.
up, but I'm just saying.
Yeah, we can end on that. How can you go into a healthy relationship if you're not? But again, we have excuses. You know, I always tell people, they come to me and say they want a job, don't have one resume. Don't give me anything to work with to even make a resume. Oh, you want me do the work, do the resume, and go to the job for?
That's right.
So you don't want it. We only know if you want it based off of the work that you put in to get it. So no, and there's so many people who want the help that we're gonna move on to those people.
That's right.
As professional women, we don't have time to waste on the 50 excuses that you got, right? And I'm not saying I've experienced a lot of things, but I've experienced a lot of things. And so you can be here today, but you can also be here tomorrow. No, I didn't go to sleep and wake up in a Bugatti, but I did go to sleep poor, and I woke up and I had a few dollars. So what is the excuse?
And you experience things through other people. So
I did.
it don't always gotta be you. You experience things through other people.
Yes.
So, I'm more than happy to come back.
Yes.
I'm looking forward to any of the feedback. I'm here for it. I will be tuning in next week.
Okay.
Been catching up on my episodes.
Yeah.
So, again, I'm so proud of you and the journey God is leading you on, because it's much needed. It's much needed. And I love that people get to see you in this capacity, because you can be quiet and meek.
Yeah.
But
But
you, my sister, yes, you got the roar, okay? You got it. And I'm glad that people get to see that side of you. And so I'm just appreciative, and I will be back.
I know you'll be back. So I'll be back tomorrow. So let's talk. We'll text. We'll text throughout the weekend, and let's get us another date. Because I want us to do something in person. And I want us to sit in the same room, right? Sure. And have the conversation, because I think when two people are in the same room, it's an energy flow, it's a transfer, it's a vibe, it's all of that. Because again, the people need to hear from you don't need to keep hearing from your girlfriends, because some of that advice may not be right, girl. Hear from a professional that this is what they do, right? They know when the body do certain things. They know what movements are. You need to be able to get into that. And I'm going to say this, and I am going to close. Invest in yourself. Stop saying you can't afford a therapist, but you can afford every bag, every shoe, every dinner date. You don't miss a meal, right? You're out at every brunch, but you don't want to invest. And I'm done.
Don't get me started prioritizing that. You're right. Prioritize. Yes, you're right.
You walking around a loose. You don't want to get therapy with you walking around a loose cannon, but you fly though. You cute, sis. You real cute. But you are a shipwreck waiting to happen. And again, we talked about the men with the excuses. You got every excuse, girlfriend, that you don't want to do. But again, I'm off that. We gonna get together. I love you all. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for watching. Don't be mad at me. I hope you come back. But this was good for all of us. Ronika, thank you for your feedback. You've been active in the chat. Yes, I appreciate you. Talisha, you have a good night. Thank you so much for coming on, and I will be in touch.
All right. Bye-bye. Thank you.
You're welcome.